with, can't read my own writing. No, good Lord. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Listography. Joe here with my compatriots, Kramzer and Jason, and we're all the way up to 2014. Time is just flying by here on Albums of the Year. What happened in 2014? I don't remember, but in the music world, you had the top song, Happy by Pharrell Williams from the Despicable Me soundtrack. So that seems weird that would be the number one song for an entire year, but it's a good song. I will say that. And the whole soundtrack's actually quite good. So not a bad movie either. I like that movie. It's fun. Also in 2014, you had a lot of soundtracks. Guardians of the Galaxy made 70s yacht rock cool again, briefly. And actually Frozen was the second biggest selling album of the whole year with 9 million albums sold, which is a crazy amount, especially since it came out in 2013. I'm not sure when exactly, but that was a monster. Second biggest behind only Taylor Swift's 1989, which sold 1.287 million in its first week, which was the most since the Eminem show, like 12 years ago, or 12 years prior, I should say. And 1989 sold 10 million in 2014 alone. So Taylor Swift has ascended to the top artist in the universe. 2014 was her ascension. She's pretty much still there. So good for T Swift. She's really dominated the past almost decade now in popular music. Also in 2014, you had the deaths of Oderus Ungerus from Gwar, of course, as we all know. You also had Bobby Womack passing away, and Casey Kasem, the dean of American Top 40, fabulous voice. He also passed away that year. You had nobody important winning American Idol and The Voice. I saw their names, but it rang no bells at all, just completely anonymous. I think at this point, both of those shows were just churning out crap, and I guess they're still popular, but they certainly have not minted any new pop stars lately. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you had Nirvana, Kiss Baby, Hall & Oates, Peter Gabriel and Linda Ronstadt getting in, and Cat Stevens got in the Hall that year. And that's about it. I looked at the Billboard charts, and there was just a whole bunch of bad songs in the top 10. You had Dark Horse by Katy Perry, All of Me by John Legend, Fancy by Iggy Azalea, Counting Stars by One Republic, Talk Dirty by Jason Derulo, Rude by Magic. Remember that song? That song sucked. And All About That Bass was big in 2014 as well. Meghan Traynor. You had some bad pop at the top of the charts. Maybe not around the periphery, but Billboard chart was not pretty for 2014. And that's all that happened that year. Nothing else. So let's get to our lists. Shall we? Unless you have something else to add about 2014, but I can't imagine.
To me, it's a great year I got a lot of pop albums that I really like, or pop musicians. But yeah, I mean, those songs you mentioned are I don't like any of them. Not what I'm talking about, but not exactly the most mainstream, but definitely some pop albums that are going to be on my list, and some that aren't, that I still like. So yeah, kind of a weird year. I thought this was kind of a weak year in general for me, but that's just me.
2014 for me, kind of weak at the top, not a ton of 5 stars, but pretty deep with like 4.5 stars. Lots of good albums, and like I said it to you guys in the text, I had like 14 records still in play as of about an hour ago. So, but we got it down to 5. Get into my picks, the ones that are just missing my list that I do like quite a bit. Meta Modern Sounds in Country Music by Sturgill Simpson, Only Run by Clap Your Hands Say Yeah, Mended with Gold by the Rural Alberta Advantage, Seeds by TV on the Radio, which I think is a really strong bounce back from 9 Types of Light, Familiars by the Antlers, Singles by Future Islands, They Want My Soul by Spoon, Morning Phase by Beck, Upside Down Mountain by Connor Oberst. All right, but getting into the 5 on my list, I've got Classic Zeus by Zeus, Really cool Canadian band. I've talked about them a little on the channel before. Indie pop with kind of classic 70s rock instrumentation, nice warm production, everything that I like, done really well. No surprise with the next one on my list, a band that has appeared many times. I've got Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos with Slingshot to Heaven, making their perfect 5 for 5 run, every one of their albums cracking my top 5. I've also got, this was the dark horse that came climbing quite a bit from where I had it originally in 2014. I've got Heal by Strand of Oaks. Really good record, kind of heartland rock thing that was getting big around this time. I've got another one of those in my top 5, but it's big sounding and also really personal. I like the lyrics on it a lot. I've also got With Light and With Love by Woods. Really cool, kind of folky, psychedelic. This record's kind of jammy. There's some really long tracks where they sort of stretch out instrumentally a bit, but all the melodies are super catchy too, so I really like it. My winner, though, I think Cram called it. I think this was his official guess, Lost in the Dream by The War on Drugs. I love it. Like I said, Heartland Rock coming back in 2014, and this was leading the pack, I think. I like their previous records. Slave Ambient's really good, but this one, I think, takes everything to another level. Songwriting is better. The vocal performances are better. The instrumentation is amazing. The production sounds really good. The mix is really wide and everything has its own space. You can pick out all the instruments really easily. There's great separation. We talked in the 2012 video about how Bloom by Beach House kind of just washes over you. It kind of puts you in this like fairyland. And I feel the same way about this. This record is titled appropriately. You kind of get lost in the dream when you're listening to it. Just this wash of sound coming over you. But it's really amazing the way they do it with more traditional rock instrumentation rather than synths and keyboards and stuff. There's some synths and keys on this, but just the wash of guitar sounds that sort of just take you away. It's really fantastic.
Okay. We're beating a dead horse. These newer years from like 2000 on, so much access to so much music. So there's still a large volume of stuff that I like a lot, but like Jason, I don't consider the top to be as elite as many other years. So I think it's kind of a weaker year. Got 1 5-star album and 2 4.5s, and then a ton of 4s. But nothing really other than TV on the Radio with Seeds that Jason mentioned that I wouldn't go any higher than 3.5. Antlers, Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah. War on Drugs, I like a lot, but I don't love it. I've only got that at 3.5. The things that just missing for me are Ryan Adams, kind of nice little return for him. And this album's like, I call it his Tom Petty album because it's very almost heartland rock, like Jason is saying. Here and Nowhere Else by Cloud Nothings. Too Bright by Perfume Genius just misses. And then the one that I had to cut is a pop album that isn't as popular as it should be, Goddess by Banks. But here's what I've got. I've got Atlas by Real Estate. They're just kind of the kings of beautiful jangle guitar rock right now. Really nice laid back guitar album for the most part. Yeah, probably my favorite of Real Estate. I've also got St. Vincent by St. Vincent. She really eclectic album. She's a chameleon, a la like David Bowie. Even within her albums, like almost song to song, very cool. I've got Sucker by Charlie XCX, which you guys called. This is just an awesome, boisterous pop album. It's killer. This one I've got at 4 stars, probably could have been a 4.5 or 5 if it didn't tail off considerably towards the end, which I didn't see this album on like any list looking through, but I think it's great. It is Strut by Lenny Kravitz. I absolutely love it. It's incredibly fun and poppy and soulful and really got the grooves and the R&B going. It's just a big celebration. But then towards the end, he kind of, I don't know if they just like wanted to make it longer. There's just a bunch of like tracks from like his late 90s. They sound like they're like old late 90s Lenny Kravitz, like love ballads, and it's got Happy Birthday on it, and it's just but the first like 6-7 tracks on it are awesome. And the leadoff song, Sex, is one of my favorite songs of this year, so I love it. But my winner is going to be, you guys knew it, Ultraviolence by Lana Del Rey, now a 2-time winner. I love this album, notably brought in Dan Auerbach to change kind of the sound, and it is a big difference from Born to Die, which also won for me, but it's got this just more classic 60s flavor to it. I just love her blend of style and pop. But this one is just like stinging with poisonous heartache. She's very victimized but hopeful, like things will always get better. And just some of my favorite lyrics, especially on the song Cruel World, talking about, you know, the whiskey and Bibles and the suburbs, and just the tapestry and the imagery she always creates puts you in such just a rich sort of vision of how she kind of sees the world. Ultraviolence, Brooklyn Baby, West Coast is a really cool, just kind of straight up rock song. And then towards the end, she does a little bit stuff that's more closer to Born to Die with heavier pop stuff like Sad Girl. She's always this girl that it just falls head over heels for these men and just gets crapped on and just treated like crap, but she like never gives up. It's just really awesome. Vulnerability is amazing on this. One of my favorite sounding albums of all time. I loved it from the second I was 45 seconds into Cruel World, the first song, and I just think it's awesome. I think it's a really cool artistic statement to do this 2 years after Born to Die. Like, you're not going to find Mountain Dew and Radio like on this album. This is like her Nancy Sinatra, drug-infused kind of 60s rock album. It's just intoxicated and intoxicating. I love it. Probably a top 50 album for me of all time. It's awesome. Ultraviolent, Lana Del Rey. And I would say most of our commenters really don't agree with my Lana Del Rey fandom, but if you're going to give one of the albums a shot, I think it would be this one. So see what you think.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. It was my number one originally in 2014. I remember talking with you, Kramzer, about that, to Jason's disgust, but I think it's great. There's a lot I love this year. I don't know why you guys don't. I have a ton of albums at 4 stars and above, more than any since probably 2004, and it's probably my second favorite of the decade. A lot of bands put out stuff that it's not going to reach my top 5 because it's so stacked to the top, but would have been on a top 5 or won a lot of other years, including Spoon with They Want My Soul, probably my favorite Spoon, Morning Phase, probably my favorite Beck album, Lost in the Dream, probably my favorite War on Drugs album, St. Vincent, 4.5 stars, not breaking the top 5, Temples, with Sun Structures, 4.5 stars, not going to make it. Sucker by Charlie XCX, love it, 4.5 stars, not going to make it. In my original list, I had Ryan Adams in the top 5, surprisingly. He drops out, but still a strong album. Same with Band of Skulls and Himalayan. They were in my top 5, but they drop out. And a bunch of other ones, Pixies, Royal Blood, White Lung, Tim Wheeler. I love the Jenny Lewis album, The Voyager. And I really like Weezer's comeback with Everything Will Be All Right in the End. I think it's a great album, but not going to make the top. And then finally, The New Pornographers with Real Bruisers, which is my favorite of theirs as well, 4.5 stars. That's my number 6 for this year. Love it. Would have made it, but I don't really like the Dan Behar tracks that much. He annoys me. Everything else, though, is great. What's that, Ryan?
He's your favorite member of the New Pornographers, right?
Of course. Well,
Yeah, he's always got the best songs.
No, not on this album. Not at all. My top 5. Starting number 5, I got Always with Always. Just great, dreamy pop. If you don't know the track, Archie Marry Me, just phenomenal. Love this album. Didn't know I loved dreamy pop so much, but really like this one. Also on my list, I got Sturgill Simpson with Metamodern Sounds in Country Music. Kind of the dude, the trailblazer, making country cool again. Great cover of The Promise as well. Also on my list, and it was my number 1 in 2014, Ultraviolence, Lana Del Rey. It's not dropping out. It's too good. It's a 5-star album. I love her, especially on this album. This really made me fall in love with her. I always thought she sounded like a drugged out Disney princess on this one, like just really cool. I love the self-awareness, the pop culture references, and I like the production from Dan Auerbach. Even, I mean, I like the Black Keys, but I like this more than any Black Keys album. My runner-up this year, I wanted to make it number 1 because I love it. and I've been listening to it nonstop in the past 2 weeks. Lose by Cymbals Eat Guitars. Kind of like, I feel like it's like the Replacements if they were good. No, the Replacements are fine, but this is sort of like that bratty, tremulous voice. It's a little dirty, a little unmelodic. Like I even hear a little like Sonic Youth in there sometimes because it's not always like beautiful melodies. There's some like dissonance and stuff, but I just love this album. I don't know, it's hard to define exactly their sound or their kind of forebears, whatever. I guess the Replacements with a little more like indie 2010s in it. Great bass though, great vocals, love it. Wish it could be number one because it's a 5-star album in my book and it would win almost every other year in the 2010s, except my favorite rock album of the entire decade is in this year, Death from Above 1979 with The Physical World. It was my runner-up originally in 2014, and just going back through and thinking about how many times I've listened to it in the past 6 years, it's really the only album from this year that I think I listened to multiple times every subsequent year. Just really love it. Just it's a 2-piece band, just bass and drums, a little, sprinkling of synth in there. And I don't know if that sort of makes me think of it more and makes it more memorable, just because the timbre of the bass is so different than guitar. Like it sounds huge and like muscular. It's really driving hard rock, incredibly precise drums. I love the drums. Sebastian Granger, who sings and plays drums, just like really almost robotic, but danceable as well. They started out in 2004 as like this dance punk band, and now they're getting like this big hard rock, but kicks off with Cheap Talk, and it's just right from the beginning, just ridiculously cool cymbals. And the bass kicks in, and it's so like big and round and warm. And he's just all over the place. He's doing all these giant runs and cool fills because there's nothing else. It's just drums, bass, little synth. It's kind of has like this evil, sexy vibe. Maybe like Queens of the Stone Age a little bit, but they're Canadian, so it's like a different sexy. And it's just really cool. It's super visceral. And I don't know if it's just the bass. Like, I don't know why I like this so much. It's super catchy, it's super loud, it's super like jackhammer, just continuous. Every song's like 3 minutes. There's one break in like the speed and like of it all, and it's about like teen suicide. So there's like no respite from the rock music coming at you. But I love it. It's great. Big old head rush. Love the bass, love the drums, love the singing. So, yeah. Favorite album of the decade, Physical World by Death from Above 1979. Just, I listened to it so much that I cannot deny that it just owns me from this decade. I don't know.
Didn't Death from Above come out with an album this year that you weren't crazy about?
Well, they came out with one in 2017, which was a huge disappointment. It's okay. And then the one this year is fine. I think I gave it 4 stars, but comparatively, it's just not even close to this. Their first album, I'm a man, you're a woman, there's a machine or something, I forget what it's called. In 2004 was fine. Like, I like it, but nothing even comes close. This is just like one giant stick out red flag of awesomeness. So they're a weird band. I don't like love the band, but I just love this album. It's just totally out of left field.
Left field is where I think all of your picks kind of came from. I didn't see any of these coming, especially Cymbals Eat Guitars.
Well, this is the first year since 1965 where I had 5 new artists. None of these artists have been on my list before. Only Lana was a runner-up, and she was, I think I mentioned her in 2012, but she was, 10th or something that year. So, and everyone else is new. I mean, Cymbals Eat Guitars is their second album, I think it was first or second from Sturgill, first from Always, second from Lana, and second from Death from Above, and their first in 10 years. So, yeah, kind of out of the blue with this one, but it might be because this is the first year I listened to like 100 albums originally, and I would continue that throughout the rest of the decade, but before, I mean, some of these other years, like 2013 and 12, I had like 4 or 5 albums I knew I liked, but that was pretty much it. This year, I knew I had a really large base to kind of pick through, and a bunch of albums that I wanted to get in my top 5. I just liked a couple too much.
I think it's also worth noting that this is a year, I mean, obviously post their best era, not a lot of great classic rock artists bring out their best stuff, but this one in particular has some of my all-time favorite artists releasing duds, or at least lousy to bad albums, like High Hopes from Bruce Springsteen. I don't like either of the Neil Young albums this year. Counting Crows with Somewhere Under Wonderland, Endless River, Pink Floyd, Rock or Bust, AC/DC, World Peace Is None of Your Business by Morrissey, Hypnotic Eye by Tom Petty, Ghosts of Download by Blondie. It was definitely a year for the new crowd, not any comeback albums really happening this year for me.
You forgot about the big story. I forgot about this. I should have mentioned this in the opening. U2's virus of an album that appeared on everybody's iPhones, which I actually like. I think it's 3.5 stars, close to 4. There's a couple really good tracks on there, but everyone was really upset that they got a free U2 album. So yeah, not a great year from the classic rock Illuminati.
It's a bunch of albums that were kind of letdowns for me. I like Voyager by Jenny Lewis, but I don't like it nearly as much as Acid Tongue. Alt J has an album this year that's not nearly as good as the one before it, so kind of a lot of that going on. El Pintor by Interpol is good, but not as good as... So everything just kind of like a step down for a lot of my go-to acts.
I think I remember you liking Always a lot, Joe, now that you bring it up and put it on your list. I was supposed to see Always that year. They were supposed to be opening for Decemberists, and they got stuck at the border or something. Are they Canadian?
Yes.
Yeah, so they got stuck at the border. They couldn't get into the country. They had like passport issues or something. So the Decemberists ended up opening for themselves. It was cool. They did like this like makeshift set where they did some acoustic numbers with like different configurations of the band. Yeah, would have been cool to see Always.
2 Canadians on my list that year, on this year. And actually, I don't know if I saw Margo and the Nuclear So-and-So this year, but I have seen them now that I think about it, in Pittsburgh, in some, I don't even remember where it was. Some girl dragged me to them.
The Brillo Box?
Yeah, it was a Brillo Box.
I saw them twice at the Brillo Box. We may have both been at that show, but not together.
Wow, that would be interesting. I remember liking them, but they didn't seem too happy to be there.
They were so about it. Jason, I'm shocked you didn't have I would have thought you would have at least mentioned Sharon Van Etten. I thought that album's decent. There's some really good songs on it, but there's some duds too.
There's some killer tracks on it. Yeah, I like her. He was kind of on the periphery of stuff I was looking at.
And you thought I might go Sun Kill Moon. And even though I like that era, I like Sun Kill Moon and I like the Kozilek stuff, post Red House Painters, I just feel like he doesn't let his voice open up as he got older. It really just takes all the albums kind of down for me compared to the older stuff.
All right, well, that's it. That's 2014. Fun year. The fun will continue because I have just so many albums all these years now. And I actually like these years. It's going to be a much different me than you're used to. You know, I'm usually the downer, especially once we got into the 2000s and 2010s, because I wasn't that crazy about them. But pretty much from here on out, the rest of the decade, I like more than pretty much every preceding 2010s year and most of the 2000s. So you'll be seeing a new side of me, some new fun artists that you might not even know about. So I'm happy to be that guy now. So yes, leave your top 5s, 10s, 20s in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check the description for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, and I think that's it for Jason and Kramzer. Thanks for watching Listography.